Hello again. This is Dr. Rand from the Human Freedom Project. It's great to be with you again, as I say every time. It is. We're going to get a little bit deeper today, but we're still talking about the book that I've written, and it's called Rebuilding the Wounded Heart, God's Plan for the Restoration of the Soul. And that is basically what we have done so far up to this point is talking about the book. Now, there's a much deeper level, and that's where I've spent a lot of my time over the last few years. I am yet to write the book about it, and I'm going to be doing that as soon as I get the opportunity, which I'm hoping by fall I can start working on that. But the deeper book gets well into all the levels that we talked about. The levels being the first level is the boardroom, which we've already talked about, and that's in the book. The second level is the religious realm level. The third level is the governmental level. The fourth level is the societal level. The fifth level is a comatose level. And the sixth level is the occult. I have worked with over 20 people where we've gone through all 6 levels. Actually, when they're in here, occasionally they'll become comatose, but the comatose level is basically to extract power from people who are comatose. And so Satan can use that either against the person if they have some of that on their strongholds, or against anybody else that they would like to attack. But these 6 levels are very important, and if we don't find those levels, then the person doesn't really get freedom. Because as we get into these levels and we move towards the 6th level, it's deeper and deeper strongholds and curses and other configurations. We really haven't talked about those yet, but we will. I know of about I think it's somewhere between 250 and 300 other types of configurations, and I'm sure there's probably more. I've only worked with a few people. But there are different kinds of geometric figures, and Satan tends to work in geometric figures because it's solid geometry, and it connects to the world and the earth and the world system. In fact, I can't remember their names, but a couple of the geometricians from years ago were stationed in Alexandria, Egypt, and they were, I can't remember their names. If I could, I would tell you, but that's all that Egyptian stuff that was connected to them, and they were definitely occultish, and so it probably makes sense that there's a lot of geometric figures that are used to curse people. I'll leave that topic for another time because I really don't have the basic information deep enough to really talk about it in any depth. What we would like to do today, though, is to remind you that anytime you have any questions, it would be good for you to check with our webpage, which is the Human Freedom Project. We also have well, I'll just stop there for now. If you have any questions, just let us know there. We are not an interactive program here, but I will from time to time answer some questions. So if you have any, please give them to us. Today what I'd like to do is I want to start with a person that I worked with for over 3 years. That person was born into the occult. And everyone who is born into the occult always has an occult set of parents. What they do is at an early age, they take you away from your birth parents and give you to occult parents who take you to rituals. And they have to notice and they have to know that you are an intelligent person. and that you're a potential leader. Because the children that are not potential leaders and do not have high intelligence, generally they get sacrificed. Because Satan only wants the best and the brightest. And that's what he goes after. Whether they continue living or not is up to them and their ability to dissociate and to adapt to what's going on, the tremendous pressure and the tremendous physical, emotional, mental, spiritual abuse that goes on in the occult. If you can't handle abuse and if you can't switch gears and switch to different parts, you're not going to make it in the occult. But those that make it and go through all 6 levels, those are assets, and they don't want to lose those assets. So they will not kill those people, but they will, if they try to get out, like in coming to me, they will put all kinds of penalties on them that if they start getting out, they will cause harm, they will cause sickness, they will cause tremendous mental pressure. They use a lot of migraine headaches because there's computer chips connected at the 6th and the 3rd level for sure, and maybe sometimes the other levels. But because of the computer chips, if they start wearing out, sometimes the persons are put to death. And that does happen. When the computer chips and the strength of the strongholds starts lessening, the person will tend to act out. But I don't want to get too far into the weeds on that one right now because there's a lot to talk about in that respect. But as we get deeper here, I want to go to the boardroom of this particular person that was born into the occult and then given to occult parents. And not whether it's the regular parents, the birth parents, or the occult parents. They treat the child horribly. The goal is to beat you down and break you down to nothingness so that they can put their strongholds and curses and they can program you from day one. And when you're in the occult, you're going to be programmed from day one. You're not going to be able to get away from that because that's exactly what they do. Through their rituals, they go after you and they defeat you by putting so much pain on you that you can't handle it, or you think you can't handle it, and then you transfer to a fragment of yourself. Or on these wheels, as we've talked about them, there will be several fragments. I've had as many as 10 fragments off of some of these parts that are on the 6th level, for instance. So what I want to do, though, is take you one step at a time with the same person. I redacted their names, or their name, and so that you won't know. I'll call her Mary, but that's not who it is. But I want to protect the person because I really care about this person, and I don't want anybody to even guess who this might be. I really don't talk about this otherwise, but most people don't understand the depth of what I do, so I've kind of been quiet about it for years and years and years. This is the first time that God said, okay, I want you to get this out so people can see it. So that's what I'm doing. So today we're going to start, I'm going to show you a boardroom that is really complex. Let me see if I can get it in here so I can, let's see. That's a very complex boardroom. Okay, so the person is 56 years old. And remember we talked about there's a host, and that's the person that's, let's see if I can, it's kind of hard to get it all in there. But the host is right here, is not even at the table. And Jesus is, let's see, it's all turned around here, there. Jesus is up here, he's not at the table either. And that tells you a lot right there, of the brokenness and the separation from God that has happened with this person from the very beginning of their life. Jesus is always at the table when it comes to people who are not in the occult. But people who are in the occult are so separated from themselves and separated from God and Jesus that they feel like a nobody, and they feel like nothing, and they're very much alone. Loneliness is a big thing with someone in the occult. As you look at it, there are only 9 different parts that are at the table out of 25 parts total. I mean, that's what happens when you get separated like that from yourself and from God. You've got a number of parts that are standing up against the wall in the room. Remember, the outside of the boardroom represents your crania, and the table represents your brain. Well, this is a very scattered brain right here. So what we have is the name, like age, I'll put it closer, age 15, and next to it is one stronghold, and we do that 18th. If you remember from our previous discussion, we go in order from 1 to 25. The host is always last, so that's 25 on this graph. So it looks like we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, so there's 7 parts outside the room totally. That's really separated. So the idea is to have Jesus at the table, and when we're done and we're one, it'll be all the parts around Jesus. But you can see there's no oneness here. It's totally separated. In order to be balanced at the table, the left side is your left brain, the right side is your right brain. And these particular parts here are basically balanced, but you need all the parts at the with the usage of the brain in order to be balanced. And so there's like 16 parts that aren't at the table. And so it becomes very difficult in this particular person's case to be able to become one at all. So what we do is we go through these one at a time, and when we were done with this boardroom, all the parts were in the room, all the parts were at the table, all the parts could hear what God had to say, whether they wanted to totally agree with him or not, and every one of the parts had accepted Christ. As you see on the bottom, there's 2 strong men. There's 2 strong men, Nostrus and Estrum. Now, those are some very high-level spirits. And anytime you're in the occult, you're going to be ruled by territorial spirits. Because in the rituals, I'll stick it over this way. So in the rituals, they have the rituals, and they call in these large spirits from the territories that they're in. Nostrus is over the northern United States. There's 13 states in the northern United States. I'm not going to list them right now. There's 13 on the East Coast. There's 13 in the South, including Puerto Rico and the Dominican Republic. And then there's 13 in the West, including Alaska and Hawaii. So it's 13, 13, 13, and 13. Over the north, there's a spirit called Nostrus. It's an acronym. It means no one shall, N-O-S, trust, T-R-U-S. So the basic issue over the northern United States is this strong man on this particular boardroom is also over the entire north of the United States. And when it says no one shall trust, that's exactly what it means. The Estrum is over the eastern United States, and that means everyone, that's the E, shall take, rank universal mechanism, which basically it's another way of saying you will take computer chips. And the only way that people can have computer chips inside of them, you're not going to be all cut up. No, demonic spirits can bring them to whatever part of you. Let's see if I can center this a little better. They'll bring the computer chips to whatever part of your brain that they need to go to, or the brain or your body, depending on what kind of programming you have. The demons will bring those computer chips to that part of your body. So as we talk about this, we're going to use this as a basis for the rest of our discussion on wheels and levels. Now, a person who has all 6 levels, the 6th level, the person basically is going to be so highly programmed that they dissociate all the time. And when they're at rituals, demonic spirits take them over totally. They have no control of their life. They're kind of on the outside looking in. The parts, some of these parts don't even want to be there, of course, but they are so highly programmed by that time. They are kind of watching themselves be attacked, be ritualized, be abused sexually, physically, all kinds of different ways. But they're kind of on the outside looking in. And so that's what happens by the 6th level. Some of the other levels, that happens from time to time, but we will get into that. I think that we will probably spend at least one session on each one of the levels, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick out one wheel, and sometimes there's many as 3 or 4 wheels on a different level. So let's say you had level 2, there might be 4 wheels. There might be one wheel with 3 parts, one wheel with 4, one wheel with 2. There's never just one, because there always has to be 2 other parts. So then let's say the 2nd level has 3 wheels. The 3rd level has another 2 or 3. And the 4th level has another 2 or 3. There's a lot of levels when you get into the occult, because they are practicing their hatred and their rituals on a twice-a-week basis, except for during the week of Halloween and the week of Easter, when they generally meet for 2 or 3 weeks every night. So those 2 times a year, I don't know exactly how many times, but it's pretty perpetual and constant. So as we continue to talk about the boardroom, you can see how disparate these parts are. And you can see a couple over on the one side. Let's get it up close. It says 1st trimester pre-birth. And then over here it says 3rd trimester pre-birth. There wasn't any part on the 2nd trimester, but Satan attacks a person even before they're born. So these people who believe in abortion, I mean, Satan obviously doesn't believe in abortion, because he's attacking parts of the baby, and so they must be a viable option, or he wouldn't attack them. So, I mean, they're contradicting the people that are on the high levels in the occult are contradicting themselves. They want babies to die because Satan hates babies. But if they can't kill them and God protects them, they will put curses and strongholds on these levels, so that either the 1st trimester or the 3rd trimester will have such difficulty, they will carry that into the rest of their life. So there's so much to say about an occult boardroom. And most people who are not most people, but all people in the occult have multiple personalities. And you can see that real definitely here. Average people, most of their parts will be around the table, and they are not what I would call multiple personalities. So we will go into the religious realm level next, and we will talk about that. I'm sure that you will have some questions about this, so I welcome that, and I would be glad to answer them. I can only think of so much off the top of my head like I'm doing. I'm not preparing these at all. I'm just talking about all the knowledge that I've gained over the last 20 years. So we will stop there for now, and next time we will be working on talking about level 2. And so I would say this before we leave, if the sun has freed you, you will be free indeed. So goodbye, and God bless.